Imagine waking up to headlines that your country has just been slapped with staggering tariffs by the world's leading economy, all because it dared to trade in its own currency rather than using the US dollar. This startling scenario reflects the stance President Trump has taken against the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, warning that any move to undermine the dollar's dominance will be met with 100% tariffs and a complete cutoff from American markets. In the past, such a threat might have seemed unimaginable, but the global financial landscape is shifting in ways few would have predicted. Brazil offers a compelling example. Despite the risk of alienating the United States, Brazilian policymakers are pushing for cross-border settlements in local currencies, a strategy they believe can reduce transaction fees and insulate their economy from abrupt swings in dollar valuations. Their success with PUGs, a real-time payment platform that quickly overtook cash and credit cards domestically, has emboldened them to explore blockchain-based systems for international transactions. Advocates say these technologies could facilitate near-instant settlements and drastically lower costs, making the US dollar less essential. Russia and China have been chipping away at dollar-centric structures for years. After facing layers of Western sanctions, Russia sought greater self-reliance by promoting its national payment card, MIR, and setting up alternative messaging systems to bypass SWIFT. China, home to UnionPay and fast-growing digital wallets, struck agreements that allow more trade deals to be settled in yuan. This partnership enables the two nations to reduce their vulnerability to external pressure. Real-time trade data shows a growing proportion of Sino-Russian transactions denominated in local currencies, a trend mirrored by Iran and other countries squeezed by sanctions. India, for its part, has begun to purchase Russian oil in rupees, attracted by discounted crude and eager to avoid potential sanctions on dollar-based transactions. By negotiating deals in rupees, India retains greater control over its financial flows and reduces currency risk. Similarly, South Africa sees local currency settlements as a pragmatic way to minimize exchange fees. Its trade with China, now over $50 billion annually, is increasingly being priced in yuan, sparing businesses the added step of converting everything through US dollars. Crucial to this push is the BRICS Pay initiative, a blockchain-driven payment platform designed to integrate each nation's existing system, like Russia's MIR or India's UPI, into a unified network for cross-border transactions. The potential advantages are significant: automated currency conversions, lower fees, and faster settlements. Additionally, by relying on decentralized ledgers, BRICS Pay sidesteps many of the traditional choke points that the US or European authorities might control. If it matures, this platform could substantially weaken the dollar's hold on global payments. Meanwhile, BRICS countries have been fortifying their gold reserves, underscoring a desire to shield their economies from the effects of US sanctions. As gold is not tied to any single nation's monetary policy, it offers a degree of security if dollar-denominated assets become inaccessible. Russia in particular has dramatically increased its bullion holdings, and China's official reserves, though not fully transparent, rank among the world's largest. Brazil, too, has grown its gold stockpile, recognizing that relying solely on dollar assets carries risks in an era of heightened geopolitical friction. Trump's response is direct. He contends that no rival currency can supplant the dollar without grave repercussions. He has floated the idea of designating nations that trade heavily outside the dollar as currency manipulators, saddling them with tariffs that could cripple their export markets. Such a strategy echoes his previous tariff battles with China, Canada, and Mexico, where he used America's massive consumer market as leverage. Critics argue that while this might momentarily deter some countries, it could backfire if larger economies like China find ways to further fortify alternative trading structures. Another factor fueling de-dollarization is the Federal Reserve's influence on global capital flows. When the Fed raises interest rates, emerging markets often suffer as foreign investors move capital back into U.S. assets. Countries eager to insulate themselves from these ebbs and flows see local currency solutions as a means to reclaim policy space. The fear of abrupt currency devaluations, triggered by external decisions, encourages nations to diversify their reserves and explore payment systems that sidestep the dollar. Although the greenback remains the linchpin of international trade, each new bilateral agreement to settle in local currencies chips away at its monopoly. While many deals are still small relative to the colossal scale of global finance, these experiments could gain momentum quickly. For instance, as India refines its rupee-based energy purchases, it might encourage other sectors, from electronics to pharmaceuticals, to adopt similar models. Over time, multiple countries may find that the convenience of avoiding the dollar and the political risk it carries outweighs any short-term advantages of using it. Real-world transactions confirm that these are not mere theoretical musings. Russian tourists in Iran use Mir cards, paying for hotel rooms without touching U.S. networks. Indian buyers order machinery from China, settling in rupees and yuan through digital platforms. These concrete steps point toward a future where the dollar is one option among many, rather than the obligatory nexus for cross-border commerce. Supporters of de-dollarization argue that a more multipolar currency system would be healthier for global finance. They believe it could reduce the unilateral power wielded by the United States, foster stronger regional economic ties, and encourage monetary policies more attuned to local conditions. Skeptics note that the U.S. dollar has proved remarkably resilient. American capital markets remain among the deepest and most liquid in the world, and no single currency, whether the yuan or the euro, has matched the dollar's universal acceptance. Moreover, building robust payment networks requires immense coordination. Even if BRICS Pay succeeds within the bloc, scaling it worldwide is an enormous challenge. Still, President Trump's threats may prompt unintended consequences. Each sanction or punitive tariff can motivate affected countries to develop or join parallel structures. If China and Russia can rally enough partners, such as Iran, Saudi Arabia, or even smaller nations disenchanted with dollar-centric systems, the resulting network could become too large and integrated for the U.S. to isolate without hurting itself in the process. Technology is also on the BRICS bloc's side. Blockchain solutions bypass many of the logistical barriers that previously made it difficult to set up alternative routes for cross-border money flows. At the same time, there are practical limits to how quickly any currency can unseat the dollar. Many vital global commodities, from oil to metals, are still priced in dollars, and major institutional investors hold dollar assets as a standard practice. The U.S. Treasury market's size and depth are unmatched, offering a level of safety and liquidity that no other instrument has yet replicated. Without a comparable asset class for safe havens, nations might remain partially reliant on dollar-denominated securities. Nevertheless, signs of evolution are everywhere. By diversifying their gold reserves, BRICS nations demonstrate a shared resolve to manage risk on their own terms. With each round of new sanctions, countries subjected to financial penalties look for ways to avoid repeating the experience. This momentum extends beyond BRICS. Smaller nations in Africa, Asia, and Latin America observe these efforts, wondering if similar strategies could protect them from currency shocks and political interference. The U.S. has wielded the power of the dollar as both carrot and stick. On one hand, aligning with dollar-based systems grants a level of stability. On the other, those same systems can instantly become a weapon if Washington decides to impose sanctions. This duality is steering some nations toward exploring alternatives, even if those alternatives come with challenges. Trump's stance appears to be that doubling down on tariffs and economic threats will dissuade these transitions. But for states that already feel cornered by U.S. dominance, the impetus to find another route might be stronger than ever. The BRICS nations already account for a significant portion of global GDP. If they expand their ranks, as they have with countries like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, or Indonesia, they could form a powerful bloc. Each step these countries take to reduce dollar reliance sends ripples through international markets. Global manufacturers might need to consider pricing goods in multiple currencies, while banks scramble to build or adopt new transaction networks that handle real-time conversions. Over time, these incremental developments can lead to profound structural shifts. To be sure, the dollar is not on the brink of collapse. It remains the primary reserve currency, and the U.S. still attracts foreign capital at unparalleled levels. But where once its dominance seemed unassailable, many now see cracks in the foundation. Trump's threat of 100% tariffs might protect the status quo in the near term. Yet it could also accelerate the development of independent trade architectures. If major economies can devise functional pathways to trade in their own currencies, the gravitational pull of the dollar may weaken. What emerges could be a more fragmented global monetary order, in which different regional blocs rely on their own payment systems and currency alliances. This scenario might reduce the U.S. share of trade and financial flows, potentially increasing American borrowing costs and diminishing its influence in international institutions. While this shift wouldn't happen overnight, its seeds are already planted. The very existence of BRICS Pay, local currency oil transactions, and massive gold stockpiling signals that many countries feel it's time to hedge their bets against the dollar-centric model. Trump's ultimatum to the BRICS nations underscores the mounting anxiety in Washington over losing economic and political clout. Whether that ultimatum will slow the movement away from the dollar or spur it further remains to be seen. The path ahead likely depends on how each BRICS nation balances short-term trade-offs, risking U.S. tariffs versus achieving greater monetary independence, and on whether smaller economies decide to follow suit. In any case, the conversation around de-dollarization has advanced far beyond abstract theories. It now shapes real-world trade deals, financial planning, and diplomatic strategies across multiple continents. The world is entering an era of intensified competition over currency supremacy. BRICS nations are testing whether technology and collaboration can dissolve old barriers. President Trump is betting that economic pressure will preserve American dominance. Whichever direction this clash takes, the stakes are immense. A shift away from the dollar could rebalance global power and rewrite decades of monetary policy. Meanwhile, the U.S. stands ready with a big stick, determined to enforce the dollar's privileged position for as long as it can. Where this standoff leads will be one of the defining economic stories of our time.